Good morning, and good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're joining us from in the world today. Firstly, I'd like to wish you all a warm welcome to our Ipsos webinar on the future of point of care and rapid testing. My name is Christoph Homer. I'm head of the Ipsos UK Medical Devices and Diagnostics team, and I'll be chairing today's meeting. Typically, our global MDD team produces a number of webinars and white papers each year on various hot topics, and considering the past year and a half of the COVID pandemic, nothing is hotter than point of care and rapid testing. I'm pleased to introduce the two members of my team who've spearheaded this initiative, Nisha Guhil and Tanvi Bukhar, and they'll be walking you through the data today. This webinar is a top-level view of the data we've collected, and we'll be releasing both today's video and slides into the public domain after the webinar, both in an email to those who've registered and on our website, with a more detailed white paper to follow in early 2022. So please do watch out for that. We'll also have a short Q&A session at the end of the webinar, so do share any questions you may have, and if we don't have time to answer them today, we'll get back to you individually next week. Now, thinking about the study itself, our objectives were to understand point of care and rapid testing markets, how they've evolved and what the future holds. Thinking about the key challenges, unmet needs and opportunities, especially for companies working in the point of care and rapid testing environments today. We spoke to a variety of healthcare professionals, including GPs, hospital doctors and pharmacists, and some stakeholders in the pharma and biotech companies. We had a two-phased approach with both quantitative and qualitative research. We started off with a quant survey of 634 HCPs in the EU5, US and China, and followed up with a deep dive qualitative phase to get some deeper insights with 30 HCPs with telephone interviews in the UK, France, Germany, US and China. We also had 6 stakeholder interviews across 4 separate biopharma companies. So a really robust sample for our research. Now, thinking about the actual study today and how we're going to present it, we've cut it up into 4 different sections: the current landscape, innovations, future trends and opportunities, and conclusions. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Nisha, who will take you through the current landscape.
Thank you, Christoph, and hello everybody, nice to meet you virtually. So starting off with the current landscape, COVID-19 has entirely transformed the landscape of point of care and rapid testing. Historically, rapid tests have been mainly used in ER and A&E to make decisions about patients in life or death situations. But the urgency of isolating infected patients and the chaos of overwhelmed hospitals has accelerated that development of the rapid COVID-19 antigenic test, which yields instant results. It's a test which doesn't need to be administered by a laboratory technician. A GP, nurse, or pharmacist can run the test, and now it can be self-administered by patients. The pandemic has opened the door to the possibility of instant diagnosis across other therapy areas beyond the emergency ward of hospitals. Physicians gain control of end-to-end patient care. Everything can be done then and there whilst patients wait 15 minutes for the results. Patients too are empowered by this new responsibility to take care of their own health and are keen for more control, which suggests the demand for home testing is likely to increase. As rapid tests become more sophisticated in terms of giving fast yet quality results, the devices are starting to be supported by connected health and artificial intelligence. HCPs and stakeholders alike foresee that tests becoming part of the routine diagnostic process. And the use of these tests will be more widespread across a number of therapy areas, maybe even becoming self-administered by patients, empowering both physicians and patients in the process. These are all positive trends, opening up development opportunities for manufacturers of point of care and rapid testing devices. We asked our stakeholders and our HCPs how they would define point of care and rapid tests, and the common answer was that both are considered as overlapping terms. So in terms of location, point of care tests are typically performed then and there in a medical facility, often at the patient bedside, without the need for a laboratory. And rapid tests can be performed in a medical facility or at home. A laboratory may be required. The turnaround time described as quick, immediate, real time. Time frame is usually up to an hour outside the laboratory and up to 24 hours if a laboratory is required. Point of care and rapid tests are considered crucial in 3 areas of health. Emergency situations where patients' lives are at stake, for example, in heart failure. Chronic diseases that require regular monitoring, so for example, diabetes or blood clotting diseases. Diseases that have a better prognosis with early intervention, for example, HIV. So factors such as rapid turnaround time and on-site testing basically give the physician more control to reach an immediate diagnosis and speedier treatment decisions. Through our research, we found a number of therapy areas that do use rapid tests, with some disease areas requiring immediate clinical decisions, particularly life-threatening conditions in the cardiovascular space. For our respondents, tests outside of the lab are either lateral flow or strip tests, or require a cartridge machine, usually run whilst the patient waits. Some prefer to send samples to a lab in parallel with self-administered tests to confirm diagnosis. Our quantitative data confirms that the main advantages of point of care and rapid tests are ease of use and fast turnaround time. And the tests allow the physician more control over clinical decision making, which helps to quickly determine a quick course of action or treatment for the patient through ruling in or ruling out conditions in that diagnosis process. In terms of the challenges, accuracy remains a key challenge across all markets. While some HCPs report that tests in some therapy areas have become more accurate, for example, glucose testing, overall, point of care and rapid tests remain less accurate compared to tests run in a laboratory. In China specifically, costs of tests and the lack of trust in point of care and rapid testing are bigger issues compared to the other markets. Chinese HCPs report wide differences in accuracy and stability between manufacturers, especially the local manufacturers. So overall, accuracy is an important consideration for companies in this space and with future development of testing kits to help drive adoption. HCPs foresee the home testing market opening up in the near future, with patients taking more responsibility for their health and taking control of diagnosis and treatment within certain therapy areas. Specialists in sexual health, for instance, highlight how HIV home tests have revolutionized this therapy area, where in the past there might have been a stigma to go into the clinic to get themselves tested. Home testing goes hand in hand with the evolution of connected health. Patients self-test, and then they have a teleconsultation with the doctor. So home testing is appealing because it reduces travel, it minimizes waiting time for getting results and making a diagnosis, and eliminates consultation costs in some markets. Despite many advantages with home testing, respondents do raise some concerns. So physician expertise is still required. Home tests are not suitable for big decisions. Some serious conditions still need to be evaluated and treated by a qualified physician, such that an initial diagnosis from a home test would need to be followed up with a medical appointment. Considering user error, home tests must show a straightforward result, positive or negative, to make interpretation easy for the patient. There is a risk the patients will not perform the test properly, which will lead to inaccurate results. It's important for patients to be shown how to use the test for the first time, or instructions need to be clear. Thinking about low accuracy, some tests such as glucose and COVID are seen as reliable. However, accuracy for home testing remains a concern. In China, quality of home tests is mentioned as an issue with local manufacturers. There is optimism. Home tests will continue to develop and improve, but point of care or even laboratory tests may still need to be performed in parallel to ensure correct results. Thinking about fear of change, there also appears to be some reluctance among HCPs to see their medical expertise being replaced by home tests. They fear losing that end-to-end control with regards to speed of diagnosis and decision-making. In France in particular, HCPs agree that tests must be prescribed by a qualified physician for home use, even if the practical step of collecting and testing the sample is done by the patient. And finally, the potential burden on healthcare due to lack of control. So increase in home testing will in a way prevent the number of hospital visits. However, it could go either way. It could create pressure on hospitals due to the increase in the volume of tests. And then you have a scenario where patients are rushing to the hospital out of fear, even though medical care might not even be required in many cases. So it's important for companies here to think about addressing or even alleviating some of these concerns within the marketing and positioning of future development of testing kits. So just to recap this section and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, it has allowed the development of rapid tests to give quick results for large population scales. This, in turn, has opened the door for the home testing market. The pandemic has highlighted the importance and convenience of rapid tests to reach quick diagnosis and treatment decisions. Point of care and rapid tests are now being used in other wards other than ICU and the ER, and have become part of clinical practice and are increasing in a number of therapy areas. We now have regular testing in pharmacies. And because of all this activity, manufacturers have rushed to enter the market, leading to a wider selection of point of care and rapid tests available within the same therapy area, making tests more affordable as a result of the competition. Now I want to talk about current innovations, and current innovation is strengthening the physician control in a positive way. So thinking about connected health, something I've mentioned before, in all markets, HCPs report that devices can link directly to deliver results to patient files in real time. HCPs are enthusiastic about the future development of artificial intelligence and generally can see its benefits in terms of assisting rather than replacing physicians. Democratizing rapid tests. So we've discussed HCPs are now running tests without the need for a laboratory. This control has reached pharmacists and paramedics who perform the tests and inform the relevant specialists as soon as the patient reaches the AE or ENR. Thinking about the technology performance, some changes have happened prior to COVID, but the pandemic has accelerated the evolution. Some tests, for instance, have improved in quality and more accurate results. For example, as I've said, glucose tests, PT or INR tests. Cartridge machines have become smaller, yielding results more quickly, and now we can get more data out of a single or a smaller sample. And finally, coming back to more therapy areas, also discussed earlier that this has been recent development in point of care and rapid tests in other disease areas. HCPs in Europe and the US mentioned PCT tests for cell sepsis and TBI tests for concussion. And in China, a rapid uric acid test to detect kidney disease and gout has become extremely popular in the past 2 years. I just want to touch on some important market access things for manufacturers to consider. So Coming back to accuracy, overall specificity and sensitivity is considered to have become much more reliable, but all markets see room for improvement. This is particularly notable in China regarding locally manufactured tests. Health coverage. In China and US, tests must be affordable or reimbursed by private insurance for patients to have access to the tests. Insurance is usually capped, and it will not cover all medical treatments and procedures, so low prices are critical. Some hospitals will not purchase devices if reimbursement is unlikely, since the return on investment must be guaranteed. And finally, regulations. In the UK, regulatory bodies are seen as somewhat bureaucratic, with legislations that cannot be quickly changed to accommodate developments such as AI, for instance. Although it's not considered a major barrier for point of care and rapid testing, some HCPs envision that approvals may not be given as quickly as necessary. And I'd like to wrap this section. Again, I'm coming back to the recurring theme of accuracy. Whilst more accurate and reliable tests are being concerned, it remains a concern, are being developed, it does remain a concern. Our quantitative results show that the markets expect more than 80% accuracy and nearly 90% reliability. Expectations from China are lower than the other markets, despite the issues reported with accuracy and reliability in their local tests. So I'm now going to pass you over to my colleague Tanvi, who's going to take you through the future trends and opportunities section.
Thank you, Disha. And hi, everyone. So in terms of future trends, satisfactory patient and HCP experience and clinical outcomes are key elements for the successful adoption of point-of-care testing. HCPs foresee that advancements will happen in three main areas. First is HCP believe that rapid tests will be extended to more therapy areas, strengthening their control over the speed of decision-making, thereby improving patient outcomes across a much larger range of diseases. Second is technology advancements. Technology will improve, especially in terms of accuracy, that is specificity and sensitivity for existing tests. Turnaround will be even faster. Cartridge machines will become more modern with increasingly better performance. Tests will be even easier to run and interpret. HCPs in the US and UK envision that the explosion of multiplex tests, and apart from multiplex testing, HCPs are also interested to see more availability of dried blood spots and finger prick point-of-care tests. HCPs, particularly from UK, are very much interested in seeing more of capillary blood small volume testing, which is still a new technology and is expected to grow in the future. And lastly, process optimization, which is a key element for future point-of-care tests, where HCP workload will be reduced, especially in European markets where hospitals and practices are currently overstrained. Rapid tests will continue to support triage in emergency rooms, improving patient flow, and hence will improve time to treatment, leading to both HCP and patient satisfaction. Now focusing on which therapy areas would benefit from rapid testing in the future. According to our research, rapid tests in oncology are in high demand in all the markets, especially for common cancer with poor prognosis. And this is also important for patients to receive quick results and avoid stressful long waits. In future, HCPs are also interested in seeing more and improved cancer biomarkers to detect lung or gastric cancers, as well as rapid fecal occult blood test, that is FOBT, to check stool samples for hidden blood. And apart from oncology, as the population ages, HCPs envision the other diseases that would benefit from rapid testing are neurological conditions such as dementia and stroke. And then point-of-care testing in infectious diseases it will continue to grow with advanced rapid tests coming up in the market for detection of different strains of flu, different COVID variants, and other respiratory pathogens. Also, there will be more awareness among people for wellness-related testing, for example, periodic testing of vitamin D levels, B12, iron, cholesterol, etc. As I mentioned previously, syndromic, that is multiplex testing, is expected to grow in the future, further empowering physicians at HCPs in all markets see the benefits of multiplex testing in optimizing process and faster decision making. It will be considered as a first step in diagnostic process to eliminate potential diseases. When a patient exhibits a number of clinical signs and symptoms, it is difficult to tell, like for example, if a patient has a respiratory complaint or a cardiac complaint. And in this situation, multiplex testing is very useful for ruling out diagnosis. It helps in terms of time optimization, as it offers a single test to detect multiple pathogens. Another benefit is that the sample collection is easier, more convenient, and comfortable for patients, and provides more data points to HCP from a single sample. Overall, HCPs report that multiplex testing is cheaper, except in China, where it is comparatively more expensive. However, there are few concerns, and main is the accuracy of multiplex test. Quality of results when testing multiple pathogens at once is questioned by HCPs. Singleplex is still seen as more accurate and reliable, and there may be a trade-off between urgency and accuracy cannot be unreasonably low. Now, in terms of regional differences, all markets are receptive to syndromic testing. However, some are more enthusiastic than others, especially the UK and US. Multiple testing is currently being used in the US and UK. Some HCPs from France and China are reluctant to use multiplex testing, and for them, singleplex is preferred because it is seen as more reliable. In China, where accuracy is already an issue, lowplex is preferred over multiplex. Now, when talking about future innovations, HCPs are excited about connected health and artificial intelligence. In UK, China, and US in particular, artificial intelligence is perceived as a great tool to assist physicians in patient care. The algorithmic technologies, machine learning will support HCPs in diagnostic decision making. In imaging, for example, AI will pick the blind spots that are not visible to the human eye. HCPs expect to have more point-of-care testing solutions driven by AI and data analytics to reduce their workload. They also talk about artificial intelligence and connected health evolving together in the future, particularly for home testing, like for example, having a technology where patient uploads a 3D image of their skin on an app or software for detecting skin cancer. Now, speaking of future for home test, connected health, AI. So in future, for minor infections, patients will perform a home test followed by a quick online consultation. An antibiotic will be sent to your home address. So the point of care with connected smartphone apps is a potential opportunity in coming years. Holistic health monitoring. People would want to test themselves and would like to avoid doctor visits. This will be a trend for the future. They would want to have rapid tests at home, and it will be like having bandages in the first aid kit at home. There is an opportunity in manufacturing a package diagnostic kit to detect infectious diseases at home. For example, detect COVID, flu strains, hepatitis viruses, in one rapid multiplex test, or even a wellness monitoring kit to detect sugar, cholesterol, iron, vitamins in a single test. Awareness is going to increase where people would like to gift wellness monitoring kit as a birthday or Christmas present to their tier ones. Outpatient care, HCPs also report a benefit in home test that could support outpatient care in the areas of oncology, dialysis, as discussed earlier. Aging patients particularly would benefit from regular home tests for cardiovascular diseases and monitoring general wellness. HCPs report that home tests for HIV have transformed the incidence of testing for this disease. They envision that home testing for other sexually transmitted diseases would have the same effect, and even for other diseases where patients are reluctant to be tested, like dementia. So in summary, home test will complement point of care testing, but it will not replace it. This will reduce HCP workload and potentially relieve an overstrained healthcare system. Home test samples are collected by the patient themselves, and it is best to prioritize samples which are least invasive, easy to collect, and it will not compromise results due to an error or a mistake during sample collection. Hence, saliva, cheek swab, and urine are considered as easy to collect samples for home testing. Now, for point of care test, samples must be easier to collect. For example, capillary blood testing rather than venous blood draw and saliva. Current innovations have shown that different samples can yield an accurate diagnosis. For instance, saliva instead of blood for HIV, which improves safety since it lowers the risk of contamination from a needle when blood is the sample. Given the continued issue with accuracy of results in China, HCPs are keen on sample types which are sterile and yield more accurate results, such as urine, but also pleural effusion, that is the water on the lungs, rather than mucus. Now, speaking about access points for rapid test, as you can see in the graph, the main locations will remain medical facilities. GP, primary physician, will be a strategic location since it is usually the first point of care for patients. A&E, ER, and ICU will continue to be key due to the urgent nature of patient care. Pharmacies will continue to gain importance and contribute to patient empowerment. There are many more pharmacies than hospitals or practices. They are walk-in and don't require an appointment. Pharmacies can act as a triage for patients who need physician care and those who can be treated symptomatically. As we see in the graph, retail is lower in the list, showing the reluctance of HCPs to give patients complete autonomy over their health. In addition, there is justified lack of trust over the legitimacy of tests sold via online retail. HCPs from China, however, are much more open to both retail on high street and online, driven by local manufacturers, and this may impact quality of the results. Now, speaking of market potential for pharmacies in-store versus online, HCPs in all markets are open to making home tests available for sale in pharmacies. Pharmacy in-store, home test has a huge opportunity for growth in all markets through pharmacy sales. In France, pharmacists traditionally have a strong advisory role, and it is necessary to have a prescription from a physician to buy tests in France. The situation is similar in Germany, where pharmacists would have the opportunity to be more involved in an advisory capacity rather than just selling products. In EU and US, prescription from HCPs is important for reimbursement purposes. Now, pharmacies online, HCPs from US and UK and China are relatively more interested in telemedicine and are supportive of tests available to purchase via online pharmacies. Receiving tests at home address via post is seen as the time-effective and convenient for patients. HCPs even envision that patients could receive antibiotics in the post from pharmacies after a rapid home test followed by a teleconsultation. So we have covered all the key themes. Now, finally, the conclusion of today's discussion. So HCPs envision huge opportunity in both home and point-of-care rapid testing markets. In future, point-of-care and home tests have huge potential within oncology, stroke, dementia, particularly with the aging population. There is a need for existing cardiovascular point-of-care tests to be available as home tests and general wellness panels such as tests measuring vitamins, cholesterol, and minerals should be developed. For both home and point-of-care testing, HCPs prefer devices that are easy to use, easy to interpret. They also want easy sample collection for both point-of-care and home testing. Saliva, cheek swab, urine, and capillary home small blood test will be considered as sample for the future. AI is seen as a key enabler to support physicians in patient data analysis and diagnostic decision-making, and connected health will get more attention for strengthening home tests through apps and telemedicine. Now, multiplex testing. HCPs are keen for multiplex testing, especially in US and UK. There is a potential in other markets too due to its convenience, but it should provide an acceptable level of accuracy. And lastly, speaking of pharmacies, pharmacies are the most convenient point of sale for home test in store in all the markets, especially in France and Germany, where pharmacists have a strong advisory role, and online in US, UK, and China. And that was the summary of today's discussion. So thank you, everyone. I'll now hand over to Christoph to host Q&A session.
Thank you very much, both Nisha and Tanvi, for what I'm sure everyone will agree was a really interesting presentation. We do have a little time left to field some of your questions, so I will have a look and see what we've got. Okay, so first question, what do you think the impact of increasing point-of-care testing will have on the need for laboratory testing? Who'd like to take that?
I can take that one, Christoph, thank you. So I think the need for laboratory testing will continue to grow, especially since many of the point of care tests that we've been talking about in the webinar today will need to be verified to get a rubber stamp on the diagnosis. And also, if we think back to COVID, many markets now have a disease management strategy for prevention, isolating, and regular PCR testing. We're always going to need the laboratories to do the mass analysis required to maintain that strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, from my perspective, the landscape has been primed for testing both during pandemics, but also for diagnosis, for preventative and for monitoring. So I think the need for testing in both laboratories and point-of-care and rapid testing is going to increase as time goes by, as the landscape evolves. Okay, so what else do we have? What role will connected health play in rapid testing in the future?
I can take that. So it's basically having an app system with the rapid test, and that is going to be the future. So apps could assist patients in monitoring self-administered tests. They could sync with patient test results across all therapy areas, and test manufacturers could provide remote support Like patients would scan a QR code and watch a video for advice on taking tests and interpreting results. We have Internet of Things. So point of care devices would be able to communicate with centralized location remotely, provide important information to the operators, and speed up the data transmission for big data analysis, which can contribute greatly to the prevention and control of different diseases like pandemic, for example. And we also have real-time monitoring. So real-time monitoring with the help of connected devices can save the lives of many during medical emergencies like heart attack, asthma attacks. So with real-time monitoring using a medical device connected to a smartphone application, and the Internet of Things devices can collect the health-related data, and it can transfer the data to the doctor. But I think, however, the data privacy is a challenge here. So manufacturers of these apps and smart devices need to build appropriate measures and processes in order to manage data privacy and meet data protection regulations. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a tricky thing, balancing the sharing of data versus the protection of personal data. And we've seen it ourselves with another piece, Ipsos thought leadership piece, our digital doctor survey, which we have annually as well, that connected health is playing more and more of a role across different types of medicine in the devices world as well. And I think that's only set to continue now with the trends that have been seen across the pandemic and the push towards telemedicine and connected health. Great. Well, thank you for that, Tanvi. So another question, how do you think sample acquisition for testing will evolve over time?
Even I can take that,
okay,
Christoph.
Great.
Okay. So for home test, as we saw, like saliva, urine, cheek swabs, which are easy to collect, non-invasive, and are the choice of sample. So blood will remain as a sample for future. However, amount of blood required will be in small quantity. A smaller sample demand also addresses the limitations in conventional techniques by expanding the potential for a quicker, cost-effective, and less invasive diagnostic procedure, and hence it is ideal for home testing. So microsampling techniques like capillary blood draw, then dry blood spots and plasma microsampling are expected to show a huge growth in the coming future. So yeah. Thanks,
Tanvi. And we see that the sample acquisition plays a huge role in terms of actually giving the material to take the tests, but also making sure that they're performed correctly by members of the public to give you accurate tests as well. So I think this is a really key part of evolution. As we've seen with technology over time, we see that technology becomes quicker, it becomes more accurate, and it becomes smaller in terms of computers, as an example. I think we can hopefully see the same thing happening with samples. So you need smaller amounts of samples to be able to run more sensitive tests, and also having the need for less complex sampling as well, which will reduce any error that there might be from handling. So definitely, I think we can see some of those evolutions happening over time. Great, thank you, Tanvi. Looking at the clock, I think we've got time for one more question. Let's have a look what we've got. Okay, you mentioned that definitions of rapid testing and point of care testing were varied and often overlapping. What needs to happen for that to change? It's a good question. Well, I can have a stab at this one to start off with. Certainly, I think we've seen throughout the study that there's a whole range of different types of tests which have emerged, different companies. So it's an area that has really expanded over the past couple of years anyway, in terms of how tests are carried out, who's performing them, suppliers, and also the awareness in the general public. And I think there is some confusion or overlapping nature in terms of the terminology that you use. What's a rapid test? What's a point of care test? Is a rapid test just quick? Is point of care just in-house? Where do the two merge? And I think as this very, the technologies have been around for a while in terms of doing these kinds of tests, but they're evolving now and they're becoming more and more varied and more wider. And so I think you're going to have different categories that are going to be forming. And there's opportunity as well for pharma companies to help shape that market and help to make different healthcare professionals aware of where the tests are happening, when the tests are happening, and why they're happening. So I think over time, as this sector becomes more mature and more established, the nomenclature will catch up and become more standardized itself. And we've seen this over time in a variety of different areas in biomarker testing and oncology, for example. It takes a little bit of time for standard operating procedures, standards of care to actually become approved in different markets, and with that comes the basis of the terminology as well. Great. Well, we're at time for today, but I just wanted to say thank you very much, everyone, for attending our webinar today. We really appreciate it, and we hope to see you again very soon. Thank you very much, and have a great afternoon.